Hello and welcome along to another EFL Manager special from the Honest Football Podcast. We continue our catch-up today with what I think, personally, is one of the most intriguing ones of the summer so far. I don't know if Craig will agree or disagree. We'll find out in a moment, because we're, of course, talking about Leyton Orient, who have appointed Kenny Jackett as manager on a rolling one-year deal. He replaces the outgoing interim Jobi Mcanuff, who's also retired as a player. But Craig, we're going to talk about the new man. He's going to be the star of the show today as we talk about next season for Orient. But as always, we do like to reflect on the previous people in the role. And I want to talk about both the permanent manager and the interim Jobi Mcanuff, because I feel they both deserve it for the role they've played in the club's recent history. Of course, Ross Embleton, if we start with him, the last permanent manager, took over in probably the most horrific of circumstances with the untimely death and the tragic death of Justin Edinburgh. And to steady the ship, to keep them in League Two, and to keep the club running in a positive way, he's got to, despite the way it ended with 7 games without a win, take a huge amount of credit, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's very hard to. I think Ross had a very hard job.
Yeah.
To replace someone that was very well liked, not only in Leyton Orient but in the football community, to be honest, and especially they just got promotion as well. So that's very, very hard. I mean, and obviously we saw his last game in the FA Trophy final, and you could tell how much the Leyton Orient fans loved him. It's very hard to replace. I thought he'd done a very good job, to be honest. Even though he had that stint where he was off out of the job for a little bit, and then it wasn't working out for them, and then came back to steady the ship again. And yeah, I have to give Leyton Orient a bit of credit. And yeah, he didn't go well near the end, but he was a fan, and emotions were always going to be running high, and it's very hard to emulate what Justin Edinburgh had done to re-stabilise the club. Obviously, they had new ownerships when they got into the National League, and I think it's definitely a club on the rise. So you have to give Ross a bit of credit. You have to give Jobi a bit of credit as well. It's the all right, the last 4 games they lost, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter because they finished in a very respectable 11th place.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. And I say I did feel a bit for Ross Embleton because I know he didn't win in his last 7, but 3 draws and 4 defeats, and 3 of those defeats were against sides that ended up in the top 7. But because the likes of Tranmere and Bolton were having their struggles at the time, it probably looked worse than it was. But you mentioned Jobi Mcanuff. Let's have a quick word on him. Of course, the skipper under Justin Edinburgh and under Ross Embleton, became interim manager, had never had any experience in that role before. And like so many others that we've mentioned this season, he got the new manager bounce. And given the lack of experience, did a brilliant job again in uniting the club from within. And actually, with a record of 6 wins, 4 draws and 6 defeats, and taking them to 11th, as you said, I think he can hold his head up high as well in retirement and perhaps move on to pastures new in coaching and management.
I have no problems with Jobi Mcanuff, what he's done anyway. He's been a very busy man. Not only does he does the Leyton Orient job, he's been on Sky, he's been on BT Sports National League as well. Yeah. I thought he done pretty well. I don't see many fans moaning about it. I hope they haven't. And I think Leyton Orient fans are quite respectful now. I think after all the drama they had before that 4 or 5 years ago, I think they've been quite respectful. And I don't actually have a problem with what Jobi Mcanuff done. It's a shame that they let him go. I thought he might have stayed on as a coach, like one of the new manager's coaching staff, but obviously we wish Jobi Mcanuff the best.
Yeah, I think the Leyton Orient fans will agree with you. He certainly deserves their best wishes. He's done a wonderful job, both on the pitch and then later on off it as well. And to be fair, I'll be speculative now. If it wasn't for those last 4 games, I think he probably had a really good chance of getting the job. But obviously things didn't work out. And that means that the club have brought in a very experienced manager. Now, Kenny Jackett is, of course, the man. We've mentioned a couple of recent ones where we were a bit surprised by 3-year contracts and all that sort of thing. But Leyton Orient, again, we mentioned the sensible ownership. We mentioned the way they're moving forward. A 1-year rolling contract, financially viable in a difficult time. And he's a manager, Craig, who, for whatever happened at the end at Portsmouth, has got an incredible CV. League 2 promotion with Swansea, League 1 promotion with Millwall, League 1 title with Wolves, EFL trophy win with Portsmouth, and then a final just before he finished there again. He certainly got the CV for it. And what was your initial reaction to the appointment? Because I thought, that might be a stroke of genius, to be honest.
I was surprised with the appointment, to be honest. And I think it's a very, very, very good appointment.
I agree.
Really good. Really, really good. I think it caught all of us by surprise. It really did, because I didn't think Kenny Jackett would go back down to League 2. We thought we could do a higher League 1 club or maybe a championship, maybe. But no, I think it's an excellent appointment for Leyton Orient, and I can see him doing very good things this season.
Yeah, I mean, before we get on to obviously the benefit of doing it slightly later, we've got a signing we can talk about and what he might be doing over the summer. But despite his ending at Pompey, and despite the fact that they just missed out on what was the ultimate goal, over that 3.5, 4 year period at Pompey, he had a win rate of over 50%. And if he carries that to Leyton Orient, they will be competing for, if not in the top 7. So what do you think the aim is for them? Do you think they brought him in with a view to taking them up into the playoffs, or is it going to be a little bit of consolidation and just trying to build something bigger for the future?
It's definitely a club on the rise. Got a high position every year since they got relegated from the National League. So, yeah, I think it can definitely be up there. I definitely think they'll be up there, especially with this appointment. Very experienced man, knows how to do it. I think knows how to do it under pressure because Portsmouth there's so much pressure at Portsmouth. There was so much pressure at Wolves when he took over, especially when they got relegated to League One. There was so much pressure on them two teams to get promoted. Obviously, he done it with Wolves, and to be honest, I feel with Portsmouth, they were always targeted to be there, and we've always predicted Portsmouth to be in the top 6 or promoted, and they just always fall away at the last hurdle. And I don't know, it's a mentality thing. I think it could be either a Kenny Jackett thing or it could be a player thing. So that's probably my only negative for Kenny Jackett's appointment. If they do get the playoffs, I just worry if he goes through that same hurdle again. Because if they fail in the playoffs, then it's definitely, it's not a Portsmouth thing, it's a Kenny Jackett thing. So that's my negative thing. But I do expect Leyton Orient to be up there next season as an early prediction.
Well, fair enough. I think we might, for once this summer, be in almost complete agreement for this, because I want to say Kenny Jackett's statement in the opening announcement from Leyton Orient was quite short, actually, but he saw the club was full of potential. His ambition was to take them to the next level. And most importantly, he said, this club could be united and successful in the coming season, but squad planning is vital. Now, the number of managerial specials that you or Charlie have sat here and said, it's all about the recruitment. It's all about what they do in the summer. And the first bit of news has already happened since the appointment, which in the last 24 hours as we're recording this, Darren Pratley, a very experienced midfielder, has been brought in. I know a few others went before. The retain list was announced before Jackett was appointed. Whether he had an involvement in that before, we won't know. But the sign-in suggests that he's going to be going for a core of experience and some of the talented youngsters that are already at the club around it. And if he gets the rest of the spine of that team right, it could be so exciting, couldn't it?
Yeah, let's start with Darren Pratley. It's a very experienced man. Obviously, just got released from Charlton, won the playoffs with Swansea about 10 odd years ago. So I think that's a very, very good point. Very good signing, for Leyton Orient. New captain now, so he's going to bring a wealth of experience, and you need that for them to sign Darren Pratley, especially not just Darren Pratley, but as an experienced man, and to name him your skipper. Hopefully, the youngsters are right. We've got someone in early that's got the experience. He's not going to boss his way around because he's got to get used to the club, the philosophy of the club. But experience is absolutely vital, and hopefully the players can look up to that. So I think it's a very good first signing. They might need a new striker as well. Their top goal scorer just left, but hopefully they can, as you said, recruitment is absolutely vital, and they could bring in a good striker, maybe from the National League, maybe bring someone up from the National League, maybe. I don't know. That's up to Martin Ling and Kenny Jackett to decide. So yeah, recruitment is absolutely vital.
Yeah, and I think the fair thing to say is, having lost the skipper in Jobi Mcanuff, who had such an influential role in the dressing room, he had to be replaced, and they've certainly done that. But the final question I want to ask you before we give our predictions for next season, and it's an unusual one because many clubs haven't been run like Leyton Orient the last few years. Obviously, since Justin Edinburgh took over, going through Ross Embleton and then through Jobi Mcanuff as well, every appointment has been a promotion within the club. There's not been a new external man coming in that management team for a long time. So what do you see as the impact of that being? Could it be that a big change could throw the club and actually cause a problem because they're not used to working in a different way? They've had 3 successive managers who have worked under the same people in the same way. Or do you think that this is perhaps the right time for that fresh start to go to the next level, and hopefully, touch wood, with fans coming back next season, it could be something special?
Yeah, I don't see it as a negative, bringing someone new from the outside, because I don't know if you can bring any more up. Because obviously Ross took over from Justin Edinburgh and Jobi took over from Ross. So I think that's pretty much it for what they have. So to bring someone new with experience is probably the right call for a fresh start, rather than bringing someone new to management. I think that would have been a lot riskier for them, and I think Leyton Orient are quite smart. I don't think it's a risk at all. I think it's actually a very smart decision.
Fair enough. And I mean, talking about recruitment and that for the summer, it was only a couple of months ago, Charlie was talking to the Leyton Orient chief scout on here, and you sort of were proven right, is that the markets were non-league, under 23s and looking for young talent. And if Kenny Jackett can add that bit of experience and familiarity in the middle, then it could be very special indeed. But Craig, we can procrastinate no longer. We need to make a decision. What's going to happen with Leyton Orient next season? We'll firmly put in our predictions for League Two later in the summer. But based on this appointment and the ones that we've been doing recently affecting League Two, what are your expectations and what are your hopes for Leyton Orient next season in League Two?
I hope Leyton Orient up there. I've got a soft spot for them. I really do. So I want them to be up there. I think they will be up there with Kenny Jackett. And it said, as we said, depending on recruitment, I think they'll be firmly in the playoffs. I really do. That's a bold statement, but I think obviously this is early in the summer, transfer window's only just open. I think they'll be up there. I really do. So if they get a good striker in and maybe a couple more experienced players, I think they'll be firmly in the playoffs.
And I suppose when you've got an experienced manager like that, contacts can always get you a player when you need to fill a hole in the squad. And based on our Bradford episode, very recently, Craig, you've now picked half of your League Two playoffs for this season already,
no.
which is a very bold move this early in the summer. However, I'm very inclined to agree with you. I think the one thing we can say without any doubt whatsoever is that Orient will improve on their finish last season yet again, which is a proud record they have. So I can only see a top 10 finish. I'm like you. I think they're going to sneak into the playoffs. I think it will be sort of 6th or 7th. It will be in the bottom end of them, because with a lot of new players, you might have a poorer start. You might struggle to find that consistency. Something we talk a lot about in League 1 or 2, where there's only 1 and 2 year contracts going around, is there's always an overhaul in the summer. And as we mentioned the other day, you've seen it with Bolton last year. You've seen it with many other clubs before. But I think they will be up there. I think we're in agreement for the first time in a long time that Leyton Orient have got playoff ambitions next year. But it's not important what we think, Craig. It matters what the Leyton Orient fans think. So let us know in the comments what you thought of the appointment, what you thought of the first signing so far. And if you're looking forward to next season under Kenny Jackett, where do you think you'll be and what hopes and expectations do you have for the season? If you enjoyed this episode, though, please do chuck a thumbs up on it. Subscribe down below for regular videos from the Honest Football Podcast. Thank you to Craig for joining me as always. You can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. And hopefully we'll see you next time.